Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophet Speak. Today we continue our study of the book of Proverbs, Sefer Mishlei, and we are in the middle of chapter 14, about to study verse 17. Once again, this second half of chapter 14 is full of an incredible amount of beautiful thoughts and a lot for us to think about. Actually, each verse would be something to go through an entire day just contemplating its lessons. And here we're even though I am splitting up the chapters, there's still so much to learn from each and every verse. But here we go. Kitzar apayim ya'aseh iveles. Someone who is quick to anger will end up doing something foolish, right? This is just something that we all know. When you're angry, you don't think straight, you do something foolish. So calm down, don't get mad, or let your anger dissipate, then make your decision, then decide what to say. V'ish mizimos, and a person who is constantly planning, devising evil ways to take advantage of other people. We mentioned this earlier in chapter 12, that from chapter 12 until the end of Mishlei, the end of the book of Proverbs, when it uses this term mizimos, it's talking about a person who is devising evil paths. It's talking in a derogatory, negative light. Prior to chapter 12, the same term mizimos is used in a positive way, referring to someone who is constantly thinking about the right path to take. It's just because the word could mean either, but it's clear in this context that it's referring to negative. So v'ish mizimos yisoneh, a person who is constantly thinking of ways to take advantage of others, yisoneh, he will be a hated person. Pretty obvious message, but an important one nonetheless. Nochalu pisoyim iveles. The one who is a fool, what he inherits, in other words, whatever he gains, what he goes after. A foolish person, when he's trying to achieve something, what he achieves, what does he get? He gets foolishness. He gets something stupid, right? Va'arumim, but those that are smart, those that are intelligent, those that are wise, yachtiru da'as, they will be crowned with knowledge itself. In other words, they will always choose knowledge itself as something to be gained. Knowledge itself, of course, leads to many good things. So they're always, if they have a choice between going after something foolish or silly versus achieving knowledge, they will choose knowledge. Verse 19, Shachu ra'im lifnei tovim, those that are bad will in the end be brought down. They will have to bend before those that are good. U'rishaim, and those that are evil will eventually bend al sharei tzedek, on the gateways of the righteous. Right, on the gateways of righteousness. Eventually, they will all have to come back and rely on the good people. Eventually, they will all need those that are good, and that is the ultimate end of how it will work out. Verse 20, Gam lirei ehu yisane rosh, right? A poor person, this is unfortunately something real that we all know and experience. When a person is poor, when a person is down, he loses all of his friends. A rush often means a poor and a person who is in poverty, but it means a person who is stepped on, who's at the bottom, who's people are always stepping on the guy who's at the bottom. Even his supposed friends abandon him. Unfortunately, many of us may have lived through these kinds of situations in our lives when we need friends the most, when we're at the bottom, when things are not going well. That's when it's hardest to find company. But there's lots and lots of people who love the rich guy. Everybody tries to be friends with the rich guy. Now, verse 21 is kind of a complement to this verse. Because of the reality just described in verse 20, he therefore says that a person who does not treat his friends well and joins in when his friend is down, he's one of those friends who abandons him. Chote, he is a sinner. In other words, don't act the way the people generally act, which we just described. But rather a person who has mercy and kindness and gives grace to those that are poor. Ashrav, he is praiseworthy and and worthy of praise. In other words, don't do what everyone does. Everyone is friends with the rich guy. Nobody is friends with the poor guy. But you should not act that way. You should be friendly with the guy who is down. Halo yit'u chorshei ra. Those people who are constantly planning evil. Chorshei literally it means to plow, but it also means to when you work through something, you plan something, you prepare something. That's what it means. Chorshei ra, someone who plans evil, who's constantly thinking about bad things. He will get lost, right? He will end up wandering off alone on his own. But v'chesed ve'emes, those chorshei tov, those that are planning and working for good and are constantly trying to build something good, their reward will be kindness and truth itself. B'chol etzev yiyeh motzar. No matter what the trouble is, any work you put in, any pain that you go through, there will be some gain from it. If you approach it properly, of course. But no matter what suffering we have, no matter how hard we work, even if it seems like we weren't successful in achieving the goal, we worked really hard and we didn't quite get where we thought we wanted to get, but there's still some gain in the work that was done. Udvar sifasayim ach lemachsar. But a person who just talks and talks but doesn't do the work, that is just simply a waste of time. That is just totally a loss. The guy yaps and yaps and yaps about how he's going to do this and he's going to do that, and I'm the greatest in this and I'm the greatest in that, but he doesn't actually do any work, then it's just a total failure and a waste of time. But a person who shuts his mouth and does the work, then even if he doesn't quite get all the way to the goal that he started to reach, that he was trying to reach, at least he gained something. Ateres chachamim ashram. What is the crown of a chacham, the crown of a wise man, the thing that a wise man is proud of and holds high is his wealth. What is his wealth that he shows off? Right? It is the crown that he wears as a wise man. That itself is what he crowns himself with. Iveles ksilim iveles. But the foolishness of a stupid person, of a ksil, of a fool, is his foolishness. In other words, the foolishness itself is the way he's described, becomes his essence, right? The wisdom itself is what becomes the essence of the wise man. That's his crown. Matzil nefashos eid emes, a person that testifies appropriately and truthfully is a person who is saving lives, right? In almost every context, a true witness, a person that testifies properly and appropriately is a person who is saving lives, whether he's a witness in a murder trial or a witness, to say the truth about what happened, to restore the just property to the just owners, etc. That is an eid emes. He is saving lives. V'yafiach kizavim, but a person who's constantly whispering lies, mirma, just spreads more lies and more deceit and more people cheating the other one. Biyiras Adonai mivtach oz. In the awe of God, in the awe that one has of God, right? That a person can have a reliable source of strength. When this is the awe of God, and I've emphasized this many times, means, and when one understands and contemplates the greatness of God and the greatness of His creation and the greatness of this incredible universe within which we exist, a person then realizes he feels awe, he feels humble, he feels low. Within that humility, one finds strength. And his children will learn from him, and they will be able to take refuge in that same source of strength. The humility that one has before God is a source of strength. Yiras Adonai Mekor Chayim, again, the awe of God is a source of life. Lasor mimokshe maves, and it helps us turn away from traps that lead us towards death. Understanding our humble place in this world helps us remain alive, helps us find value in our lives, and it helps us stay away from paths which lead only to death and destruction. Verse 28, Birov Am Hadras Melech, The glory of a king it comes when he has many citizens, right? A large country, if a person has a lot of people on his side helping him, the king can have glory. He can have success, right? However, the uve'efes la'om, but if a person doesn't have a nation with him, chitas razon, that causes tremendous fear, tremendous ruin to the one who is in charge. When you're trying to lead a team, if you have no team, then obviously you're not going to get anywhere. So erach apayim rav tevuna, a person who is patient, who is calm, who is not quick to anger, that is a person who will gain a lot of knowledge, a lot of understanding. If you're quick to anger, you immediately see something and you automatically get mad and scream and yell about it, you're not going to ever get any understanding of the situation. If you're calm and you're patient and you look and you analyze and understand, then you have an opportunity to understand what's really going on. Stop being angry. Take a chill pill for a moment. Look at the situation. Understand the situation. There's a lot to learn. But a person who is quick to anger is the opposite. Meirim ivelas. He is just gaining only foolishness, right? You're not gaining anything. If you look at something, we see something online, we get all angry, and we get all worked up, and we scream and we yell. Stop for a minute. Look at the situation, analyze the situation. All of a sudden, you learn something. You understand it differently. You understand why things happen, how things happen, and you actually gain something. Excuse me, verse 30. Chayev v'sorim, and this verse 30 is the recognition of something that we all know extremely all too well to be true. Something that it's quite a modern idea, and that is the idea that a leiv marpeh, a patient heart, a heart that is calm, a heart that is relaxed, gives life to our flesh. In other words, our physical health changes when we are not stressed, and when we are patient, and when we are calm. We're kavatz amos kina, but jealousy and anger towards others, and this kina causes our bones to rot. When we're always constantly worried about others, we're worried about what we don't have, and getting angry at other people, and so on and so forth, that will eventually lead to our very bones rotting. Will lead to our physical health deteriorating. Verse 31, Oshek dal cheref osehu. And this is a really, really beautiful, very famous verse here. One who takes advantage of the poor, he is blaspheming his maker. We have to look at every human being as a creation of God, as a child of God. And when we hurt someone, when we hurt a poor person, we are hurting God himself. That person, he may look to us like he's, at the bottom of the barrel. He might look like, like he's homeless and rags and on drugs or whatever. But he's maker. God made him just like he made you, right? So a person that takes advantage of such a person, who doesn't treat him respectfully, doesn't treat him properly, he is blaspheming God himself. Umechabdo, and the other side, the flip side, of course, is true as well. One who honors the dal, one who honors the person who is who is in this lowly state, chonein evion, right? A person who has mercy on evion is being mechabed God, is bringing honor to God. Or so if a person has mercy and kindness towards the person who is needy, who is poor. Bira'aso yidache rasha v'chosev emoso tzadik. The rasha, the evil person, gets ruined by his own evil. It's his own doings that undoes him. It's the things that he did. When you create hatred, it's, for example, if you do wrong to someone else, that very person is going to end up disliking you, of course, and one day is going to come back and take revenge. It's going to be the evil itself that begets your downfall. V'chosev emoso tzadik. Right? But a tzaddik, a righteous person, no matter where he is in life, even if he is approaching death in a desperate situation, he still feels secure. He feels like he's on the right path. He understands and he knows that he's going the right direction. Belev nachon tanuah chachma, verse 33. within Belev Navon. I'm sorry, I read that incorrectly. Belev Navon, in the heart of a person who understands, in the heart, meaning in their mind, in their psyche, right? Tanua Chachma, therein resides wisdom. So a person who understands, who is calm, who is patient, he is a person of wisdom. Uvekarev ksilim tivadea. But among fools, it becomes known very quickly who the fool is. It's very easy to tell. This next verse is a very famous verse, a beautiful verse, and I would refer you to Bava Batra in the Talmud, 10a, where there's a lot of discussion. I'm sorry, 10b, where there's a discussion on this verse. But let's look at this. How does one complement a nation? What makes a nation great? We hear about what makes America great. What is it? Tzedakah, it is righteousness. Tzedakah tiromim goy. It is righteousness that makes a nation great. V'chesed le'umim chatas. Now this is a difficult, it's not difficult to translate, but there's several ways to look at this. One is, if you look at this word chesed often usually means kindness, but it's also used in the Torah in a different sense. We find the word chesed as a reference to sin, right? There's two different meanings of this word. We find in the Torah, in Leviticus, when it talks about certain sexual sins, it calls it chesed, and it's referring to chesed as sin. So one way this is translated is the sin of nations, or the chesed le'umim, is chatas, is sin. In other words, when you have a nation that is full of sin, right, that is described as a bad nation. So that would be the flip side of the first half. Righteousness uplifts a nation, and sin ruins a nation, right? But there's another way to understand this. If we look at the word chesed, we can understand it very differently. And the Gemara in Bava Batra talks about it this way, and that is that the chesed of many nations, right, tzedakah, the righteousness, makes a nation great. However, sometimes the kindness that a nation does is actually a sin. In other words, they might do things, but they're doing it for their own haughty reasons. They may build a road, but they're doing it because they want honor and greatness, as opposed to doing it because they really want to help people. Sometimes you can do a project, the government can do a project which they can try to claim is being done to help people, but it's really being done for selfish reasons. It's really being done for the benefit of a wealthy few. That's one way of understanding it, and there's various takes on this version in the Gemara Bava Batra. But then the most beautiful one, I think, is the Even Ezra's understanding, which reflects Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's explanation, which is also brought in the Talmud at the end of the discussion there in Bava Basra. And they understand it differently, that the chesed le'umim, the kindness that nations do, are like a chatas, are like a sin offering. Chatas here not meaning a sin, but a sin offering, which gives expiation, which gives forgiveness, which brings forgiveness to people. So, in other words, tzedakah tiromim goy, righteousness uplifts a nation, and chesed le'umim, and kindness that a nation does, chatas, can help that nation achieve forgiveness for its sins. So if you're a nation and you're not so great, and you have a bad record, and you've done bad things, how can you turn that around? You turn that around with kindness. And the Even Ezra brings that, and I think that's a beautiful way of understanding it. Like I said, it's worthwhile taking a look at the Gemara in Bava Basra to see the lengthy discussion of this topic. Now, verse 35, which ends this chapter, Ritzon melech li'eved maskil. Now, this can be read as a statement, which means the favor of the king is always toward a smart and an intelligent, or a capable, a skilled servant. V'evraso, and his anger is tihiyem mevish, is always towards the one who is mevish, who is constantly failing, or who is incompetent, right? So that, but the problem is that it's just a pretty silly, I mean, I shouldn't say silly, but it's just an obvious statement, that's the word. Right, obvious, and it's not, and one can argue that it's not necessarily true, because we see plenty of kings hiring and appointing officers who have absolutely no skill, and they hire them for all kinds of reasons, for nepotistic reasons in some cases, because they think that they're popular, who knows, whatever the reasons are. But they very often hire and appoint people to high positions in the government who really are incapable or incompetent or worse. So another way of reading this verse, which is really the way Rashi reads it, is tihiyeh, that it should be, right? The Ritzon Melech, the favor of the king, le'eved maskil, should go towards the servant who is skilled and appropriate. In other words, it's advice. And the Hebrew reads very well this way. Ritzon Melech le'eved maskil. To whom should the Ritzon Melech be? The favor of the king to the servant who is successful, the servant who is skilled, the one who is appropriate for that position. V'evra so, and his anger should be towards the one who is incompetent, who is foolish, and doesn't belong in the position that they're in. So this concludes chapter 14. So many beautiful ideas, so many incredibly meaningful ideas. I hope you learned something from this. Thank you again for joining me. I really appreciate it. If you want to comment in any of the online forums, please do so. I will do my best to answer every reasonable comment. And if you want to send me something personally on the side, privately, it's Weinreb Weinrebsaul, @gmail.com. Thank you, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.